Season number 1 of the MX-5 Cup Ranked Championship 2023 here on RaceRoom has had its ups, its downs, its thrills, its spills, and plenty of twists and turns along the way. Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the RaceRoom YouTube channel and back for the finale here for the MX-5 Cup. And we're going to be in absolutely no shortage of twists and turns today as we head our way to the Nürburgring Nordschleife for the final round of this brilliant championship. Coming into today, of course, Luciano Wittwer, after only finishing outside of the top 5 once in this championship so far, leads the way in the championship. Who is going to be able to rise to the occasion and potentially top the Flying Dutchman on his way to championship glory? It's going to be myself, Zach Sweeney, Cam Roger alongside me in the commentary booth to talk you through all 3 of our fantastic races here tonight. And, well, Cam, this season's gone so quickly, but I've enjoyed every single round we've been.
Yeah, short season, 4 races over the 3 categories, and yeah, we started back in June with Moss, then to Road America Brno, and now to the Nürburgring Nordschleife. It's an amazing way to finish the season. I should say just 4 rounds, but of course we have 3 races every evening, so 12 races over the course of the season. And we've certainly seen some amazing action, so can't wait to see how it's going to round up today. With being the Nordschleife as well so long and so difficult to learn the tracks, it's certainly going to be a tough one for the drivers to master.
It will be indeed. At the moment, the drivers are taking part in their qualification. Then we'll head away into race 1. It will be 15 odd minutes in length. It should equate to 2 laps exactly. And then we'll flip the top 10 on their head. We'll go again for race 2. And then we'll do the exact same thing again for the final race of the season, race number 3. Plenty of action here to come. And well, Cam, talking about quali, especially over the course of race 1, we've got about half the GP loop usually, because, you know, we do the sprint Strecker layout. We don't really do the Dunlop S's into the Michael Schumacher S and all of that, but we do have a little bit of the GP loop. The vast majority of the 20.8 kilometers we are going to be on is going to be on the Nordschleife, which does tell me that overtaking might be a little bit of a difficulty, and well, it makes qualifying all the more important.
Yeah, often we see this, even though it's such a long track, the main overtaking opportunities are down the back straight of Dottinghur and then down the front start-finish straight of the GP track as well. And the rest of it, once you actually get onto the Nordschleife, is very, very difficult indeed. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't necessarily see the most overtakes there, but what you will see is you'll see a lot of pressure being put on the drivers and a lot of potential mistakes. The curbs are absolutely massive around here, and you really have to use them to get your lap time, but therefore, if you overuse them, you can easily spit yourself into a wall. It's a very old school, very much untouched track from its first inception, and the barriers are very close. It's a bit of a street track in some parts. It's a bit of a different vibe to the tracks you've been to so far.
Yes. Well, technically the entire Nordschleife is a street track because obviously it's open to the public sometimes, but we won't get into that at all. It doesn't really matter. But naming a track and car combo, I really can't think of a better one than the MX-5 Cup. It's such a light, agile, nippy car. There we can see it, of course, 184 brake horsepower going to the rear wheels, just over a ton in its weight. This is going to be a lot of fun to drive. I mean, it's not an open wheel car, it's nothing too stiff, it's got a slightly softer suspension, obviously still tuned to be a race car, but it will be able to take the bumps and the undulation and chuck it into corners. I think these drivers are going to have a very stressful but very fun evening of racing.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one with this car. I mean, in general, for most tracks, it is a little bit sort of small and slow for these big Grand Prix tracks that we're doing, and especially for the Nordschleife. But what you can do around here is you can really use the momentum, especially the bit on the back of the shot there, the Hatzenbach, that first bit of the Nordschleife, coming through that whole sequence. If you really get the momentum going and you can sort of stay off the brake pedal as such and just keep the car rolling forward, you'll definitely get a lot of advantage with this car. So for those who are slightly more patient, in the mid-corner, I think it might actually work out quite well for them. So yeah, the different driving styles are going to be a big factor around here, and we are going to see some pretty long times, 9.5 minutes for this. So yeah, definitely a very long one compared to the GT cars that you'll see in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, these are quite a little bit slower, but of course in a week's time we'll go to the KTMs, which should be a little bit quicker than that, and then obviously we round it off for the GT3s. It's been a nice cycle of rotation, and well, here we can see some very familiar names going, of course, in descending order from their race room rating, how good they are in ranked obviously a combination of their speed and their consistency and cleanliness. You can see the likes of Enzo Filipao, Luciano Vitfort, Marius Abdi, Sebastian Ray, Dreis, Mikel, Cravey, Orban, all of whom have taken to the podium at some point over the course of this season. It has been a phenomenal season, and in all fairness, the fact that we've opened up each of the 3 championships to everyone means that we always have the top caliber drivers here ready to deliver.
And I think that's been the biggest sort of fun about the MX-5 as well, is it hasn't been that sort of lower tier, lowest driving standards. The driving standards have been insane. The tension and the amount of pressure everyone's putting on each other at the front, the consistency throughout the race, it's certainly been a very awesome season, and I've loved having it actually as the new sort of 3rd tier as such of the ranked championship, and I don't think it's disappointed at all. In some ways it's been one of the more exciting of the 3 championships.
Of course it is. It's the one we're doing, Cam. It's fine.
Oh yeah, of course.
Obviously. Of course, our production team, of course, Chris, he sprinkles his pixie dust onto everything as well. He adds that extra glow. So, yeah, the RaceRoom Ranked Championship would not be where it is without him. And, of course, with this fantastic caliber of drivers that we've got out on circuit right now as well. You can see we've just got under 3 minutes left in qualifying. And the way RaceRoom works is that as soon as that timer hits 0, that's it. There's no, oh, you can finish your lap if you like, mate. Nah, nope, absolutely not. If you haven't finished your perfect lap time, don't care. You are stuck with the one that you've got. At the moment, it's Philip Dreis that leads the way. In all fairness to Matej Mikovic, right, in 2nd place, considering it's a 9.5 minute lap time, to be only 0.6 of a second off, that's pretty impressive.
And I think who's on the screen at the moment, pulling along Orban. So considering they're both Hungarian, I wouldn't be surprised if they're friends trying to sort of tow themselves along to get themselves high up the grid. That would certainly be a good tactic, and it is. Mikovic coming along the Dottinger Her now. 2 minutes to go, and let's just see how long. It's almost 4 kilometers from the exit of Galgenkopf all the way down to Tiergarten. So it's a very, very long wait for these cars, longer than some tracks. And yeah, definitely some bum drafting going along and a bit of team play trying to get themselves higher up the grid.
Yeah, of course. Hungary as a nation has really been quite interesting to see develop over the course of this ranked championship. I mean, we had Ben Farkas and Christian Orban sharing the front row in qualifying when we went back to Road America, and they have always been they're working together quite a little bit, and does make up a fairly hefty contingent of this field, it must be said. But definitely Christian Orban giving his countrymen a little bit of a tap as they run their way now through the final couple of corners. Got to be very committed through these. Very easy to make a mistake.
Certainly, and lose all that lap time that you've been working so hard for. And out to the final corner, can Mikovic do anything to challenge Dreis at the front of the field, coming to the line for their final qualifying lap of the season? He goes to the front, but Orban takes him by 1/10 of a second. They work together, and as it stands, they lock out the front row.
Oh my word, 9.5 minute lap time, 21 kilometers, and it's 1/4 of a second, just under 3.5 tenths separating the top 4 in qualifying. Thank you very much, RaceRoom Ranked Championship. This is exactly the style of racing that we like to see. But look at Enzo Filipao, slow to the first sector, but purple to the middle. Quicker of anyone by 0.7 of a second. The Frenchman is yet to actually set a competitive lap time, and there's no better time than now. He crosses the line. What's it going to be? A 31.7. It's good enough for 3rd, again, settling into that 10th.5 range of the top 5. After half an hour's worth of qualifying, it's a Hungarian front row once again. Christian Orban leads Matej Mikovic in 2nd. Then comes Filipao and Dreis 3 and 4. Christian Mikel and Neef make it a 4, 5, 6. German contingent. Championship leader Luciano Vitfort quite safe in his 7th place, with David Nemchek, Sebastian Ray and Marius Zabdir rounding off the top 10. We have got a copious amount of names, so we'll let them all scroll their way through all the way down to last place, which is of course Jan Nicholas Erbrich in P32. But Cam, what a qualifying session. 3.5 tenths. To be fair, 2.5 seconds covering the top 10 is mental around a track like this.
Yeah, awesome to see just how close this championship is, and I love the fact that we're seeing the competitiveness come even to this final race, and the fact that it was that close. I reckon that is going to be a sign of what's to come during the race. I think everyone's going to be bumper to bumper, bump drafting each other down the long straights, trying to get themselves towards the front because of how long the track is. Remember, we've got 15-minute races, 3 15-minute races coming up. That's 2 laps in these cars. So just 2 laps of racing. It's not very long. And as you mentioned, a lot of the overtaking is going to be on that back straight at Dottinger. So you only have 2 chances there into Tiergarten. So it's going to be very important to time your overtakes and work the slipstream well. It's certainly going to be a frantic end to the race when we get to the end of each 3.
Yeah, well, I think about a month and a half ago, we went to the Nürburgring Nordschleife for the next installment in the RaceRoom ranked events. We went to the Nürburgring 2.4 hours. And before that, we had a couple of historic events. We had the DTM 90s and we had the MX-5 Cup for a half-an-hour race around the Nordschleife. The MX-5s were a lot of fun to watch around here. Myself and Dareth Thacker talked everyone at home through the action. They were so much fun, such good racing. So we are in for a barnstorming 3 races, 45 minutes in total in terms of the racing action that we get. Cam, this is it. This is what it all boils down to. I'm sure all the pressure is on Luciano Wittwert, but he's got everything to lose. Philip Drees, on the other hand, he needs to ideally win overall. The way it works, obviously, all 3 races get their own individual points and then they add up, and then it's essentially each round is a mini championship. So P1 in the mini championship gets first place points, second, and so on. So Philip Drees ideally needs to be the best driver overall and hope that Luciano has a little bit of a slow day today in order to win the championship.
Yeah, Viva needs quite a bad round to be able to lose this championship for the gap that he's got, but certainly things can happen, and we've seen it before. Even just about this time last year, where we had the final race of the season. I think it was Mihai Neg in the BMW M2 that we had at the time. Unfortunately, actually, he was one who gained from the unfortunate events of Drovosekov that season. So certainly very possible to do so. We're about to find out who is going to be the champion 3 races to come this evening.
Yeah, this is what it all boils down to. Round number 4, race 1 of the RaceRoom Ranked Championship. It's the Mazda MX-5 Cup, and we are underway here at the Nürburgring. A good start from pole position for Christian Orban. Mate Mikovic joins him alongside for a Hungarian front row, immediately on the defensive is Christian Orban, and quite a tentative start for a lot of people in the background as well. But we've got 32 cars barreling their way in towards turn number 1, and you can see there side by side. Also in the background, nearly 3 wide into turn number 1 for the first time. Luciano Wittwert in the grey, orange, and black MX-5, that 51 machine you can see there, trying to battle his way through all the carnage and chaos up through turn number 2, and it's side by side. Sebastian Ray tried to carve his way through the carnage.
And Ray, of course, had such a great season last year as well, trying to continue that with these MX-5s through this first sequence. As that battle for 3rd place is getting very close as Michelle tries to get up into the top 3 positions. Orban holds on as they continue to go side by side. Remember, we're going to be turning right now as we're using the slightly shorter version of the GP track, the sprint version here, side by side, even in the background. Philip Powell holding off the 5th.
Yes, he's just about able to hang on to it, but continuing to go side by side as well. I think under a bit of pressure, or trying to put a bit of pressure onto Eric Neath. A couple of yellow flags in the first sector. Luciano Wittwert losing many places. I think he's gone round and had an incident. No, he hasn't. He's fine. Breathe some fresh air. However, Neath has had an incident. I think Luciano Wittwert might have something to do with it. Bjorn and Ohak both find their way through, and that is unfortunate for Neath. But straight away, the show must go on, and Mariusz Sabdir trying to put some pressure onto Nemchek before we round off the GP loop, and Mariusz Sabdir is off.
Oh, and he's managed to save it as well, just losing 1 position to Pelle Daniel in the yellow machine getting past, but that was almost a huge moment. He was wiggling side by side for about 300 or 400 meters, managed to gather it though just before coming into that final chicane of the GP loop before we get out onto the Nordschleife. That was going to be a big moment. Sabdir, he's been getting better and better, having such a good result at the Road America 2 hours that we had a couple of weeks ago as well, and really putting on a show, but down in 10th place at the moment.
Yeah, he is a driver that is, pretty consistent inside the top 10, and would like to continue that streak. Of course, has taken a couple of podiums so far this season, but today at the Nordschleife is a different beast. Christian Orban with a slightly slower start to this race, not making the progress that he potentially would have liked to in the opening moments, losing the place, of course, to Philip Drees, who now moves his way into 2nd. You can see side by side as we dip our way down before rising our way back up the hill towards the crest. It's going to be Christian McCall on the inside, the Hungarian of Orban on the outside. The cars lift up as the weight goes away from him. Enzo Filipao chucking the move to the inside, bit of contact between the two of them, and now here comes Luciano Wittwert trying to get himself involved.
I thought we were going to see an aeroplane moment for a second there, because that's an absolutely massive curb. Unfortunately, Philip has lost a couple of places there. Sebastian Ray comes through. Here's your championship leader, Vitva, coming up to the inside. This is not always the place you want to do it. Straight across is so fast in these cars, just slightly down a gear, side by side between the two. Contact is avoided in towards Arenberg in the braking zone. We are 4 cars coming, almost touching each other around the outside. It's going to be for Vitva up to 4th place if he can hold it.
Yeah, and he's got his foot in. Of course, it will give him the inside for the next fast left-hander. They still are 2 wide, 2 deep, flying in formation. The fight for 4th. Luciano Vitford just able to etch himself ahead of Christian Orban before we run away downhill. And of course, just in the background, Sebastian Ray and Enzo Filipao trying to settle their squabble. It's going to settle the way of the Frenchman just ahead. However, we can see in the rearview mirror of Luciano Vitford that is not the case at all. Filipao darting the move to the inside and just about able to scrape himself ahead of the German of Sebastian Ray. What a beginning of this race this is turning out to be. Christian Orban immediately on the defensive though. His run in the initial part of this race, he's losing momentum quite quickly.
Yeah, he helped Mikovic get to that pole position, but unfortunately himself is having to lose out here. Filipao side by side from Esquivel. That is not necessarily where he wants to be doing it. Very tight king. They managed to just about keep it on the track, on the grass. Just put the wheel on the grass is not what you want to be doing through that part of the track. Once again, down the inside, Orban's going to be holding onto it. Filipao is really starting to put the pressure on. The gaps are getting bigger up ahead. They need to not let them get too much, otherwise they won't be able to catch that down very easily. They've lost the slipstream of the group ahead, but Orban certainly struggling quite a bit here in the race compared to what we saw in qualifying.
Yeah, unfortunately, we talked about how important momentum is around a circuit like this, and when you get overtaken and continue to get overtaken while you're trying to settle into a track like this, it is so difficult. As there is Christian Orban, he's really not settled in at all. He's gone way too deep into the downhill braking zone, and he's fallen out of into the danger zone of the top 10. If he loses the top 10 here to Guides, it could be not necessarily evening over, but definitely putting them on the back foot going forwards.
Yeah, that is, it's so difficult when you start losing a few positions here and there at the beginning, because everyone's so close together. So if you go off the track like that, you end up losing 2, 3, 4 places. It's so much more difficult to come back from, whereas when it's later in the race, if you make a mistake, maybe there's 2 seconds behind you, and actually you kind of get away with it a little bit. So Orban down into 10th place. Zabdir's got up there. Zabdir's now got Peter Daniel, of course, still up ahead. But to the front, we've got Christian Michel, who's been one of the revelations, I would say, and Philip Dreiss as well. Both of those in this championship so far, coming into it, not doing too much in the recent years, but really getting stuck into it. And so here is Dreiss coming for the lead.
Yeah, well, is he going to go for it now? Is he going to wait for Dottinger-Ho? It's a long time to wait, but Mikovic looking for his first win of the season. He was able to take a top 5 last time out at Brno, but nothing more than that. And to get himself onto the podium, there's no better time than a track like this. And at the final round, of course, Christian Michel, 3 race wins so far this season, 2 of which were taken 3 weeks ago at Brno. He is a very, very fast driver and is continuing to prove that, but he's under a bit of pressure here from Luciano Vitford, and look at this in the background, queuing up behind Peter Daniel. This is absolute insanity, and around a circuit like the Nürburgring Nordschleife, this is the shortest of fuses, and yet rubbing together like this, I'm scared it's going to cause a spark.
8 cars, bumper to bumper to bumper, halfway around the Nordschleife, final round of the season. This is what we like to see. So competitive, and all of these positions are up for grabs, but you just can't be making a mistake. Otherwise you'll be dropping down the pack. We've seen a Nemchek there as it stands. He's that white car 3rd in the train, and he's working his way up towards the back of Peter Daniel. So he's got ahead of Zabdir there, who's dropped back down. Also, it's actually Nemchek working up, Zabdir dropping down, and of course Orban in behind. And these guys getting so close. You can't necessarily overtake because there's no real big braking zones at this point on the track, but it's so fast, it's all medium speed corners, and you just can't be making mistakes from what we saw Orban about a quarter of a lap ago.
Yeah, because again, it's so difficult to recollect yourself. However, the up and under potentially there from Cravey. Beautiful stuff as they run their way through the long right-hander into the left, and it's Guides that keeps him honest, but also look for Louis Gamero trying to chuck the move to the inside of the Finn. The blue MX-5 of Cravey finds himself susceptible to the overtake, and the Spaniard of Louis Gamero as they run their way through the dip and now in towards YouTube corner. It's Guides that just about is able to hang on to 11th place, but they're losing time to the all-important 10th.
And that is going to be what they're looking out for with the reverse grid, of course. So they need to actually maybe work together just a little bit, but of course at the same time you want to be just fighting for your position, because if you're not going to get into that top 10, extra positions are still extra points. Look at the massive train of MX-5s continuing to come down through the back part of the track. Now this is probably one of my favourite sections up from the Stefan Belofesses here. This is such high speed, probably not pinned to the floor in these cars, but certainly a lot of throttle, not any brake at all. Just trying to work your way through such a high-speed section is, yes, so on the limit, as you see. Back towards the front, we've got a couple of 2x2 battles in the top 4.
Yeah, we've got Mikovic and Drace fighting over the lead. Bit of a gap back to Christian Mikel and Luciano Wittfurt, but we run our way through the very, very long right-hander before we head our way through the Dottinger Hoa, the longest straight, the longest part spent flat out on the circuit. That definitely goes without saying. It's a long run before we then head our way back onto the brakes for Tiergarten, and this could potentially see the lead change. However, maybe Philip Drace is happy to sit behind, albeit a very long time behind, for another lap. Are we going to see him pull out alongside? We are. He goes to the right. Mikovic not really able to do much at this point. He's just the sitting duck, and Philip Drace is able to use the slingshot, get himself ahead. I'm sure Wittfurt's going to do a very similar thing here.
Very easy overtakes with the slipstream. It's such a long straight. There's nothing you can do if you're in the front there. So that gives us, this is the sort of the feeler for next lap, as we're only going to have one more lap to go. These races are going to go very quickly, being just two laps per race. And this is what you're going to need to do. You're going to have to try and come back again through Tiergarten in towards the final chicane for the final time in one lap's time. But yeah, 3 cars now in towards Tiergarten, pushing each other in towards the braking zone. It's very sketchy. Don't want to be spinning the car ahead of you.
You don't want to be at all. So these guys are definitely playing a dangerous game. I love how they're all in little groups of 4 or 5. We've got that group just ahead as well, queuing up behind Petter Daniel down to Sebastian Ray. Then this one forming behind Guides, who has now found himself back into 10th place. What has happened to Christian Orban? He has fallen down to 13th, maybe just freight train down that back straight. And now what we're having a look at here is Nemchek trying to pick his way past. He's got Petter Daniel and Sebastian Ray surrounding him. Marius Sabdi trying to go and get him into the mix as well. The up and under potentially. Sebastian Ray does exactly that as they head their way up in towards turn number 2. It's Marius Zabda and Sebastian Ray fighting over 7th place. Zabda has the advantage for now, but Sebastian Ray just able to scrape his way ahead.
Nemchek holding on, waiting for a mistake from the 2 drivers ahead. They're having a pretty tasty battle, actually, coming through the first couple of corners of the GP track there. So a very good overtaking sort of complex of corners. You can really go side by side for quite a while. And back to the front, though. And actually, Michelle managed to hold on overall in that battle with Wittfurt, but Drace did get ahead of Mikovic at the front. So definitely 2 different styles of battles, just showing you can come back, but just can't be sort of making those mistakes, because in the championship battle that they've got, Michel needs every point that he can, as he's what's that, about 25 points off Wittfurt in the overall standings.
Yeah, it's going to take a very poor race, or the races, for Luciano Wittfurt and for Philip Drace if Christian Michel wants to win the championship. But of course, there are still prizes up for grabs for pretty much everyone. I think, you know, there are some random VRPs being allocated, of course, not just for the championship winners. I mean, second and third also get a hefty sum, as well as we've got David Nemchek and Marius Sabdi fighting as we head away into the Nürburgring Nordschleife. But yeah, you know, in terms of the pride of winning the championship, yeah, Christian Michel is definitely going to want that, because, well, VRP for these guys, I'm sure they've already got every car and track under the sun. VRP, for those unfamiliar, is RaceRoom's in-game currency of sorts that you can use to purchase all the cars and tracks on the service, and maybe get yourself involved in one of these competitions as well. There are plenty of stuff going on, and you might be saying, well, I'm not as good as these guys. It does not matter. There are splits up and down the skill levels, and you will always settle into a nice split level for yourselves, and that's what I love about RaceRoom and the ranked scene, is that it's open for everyone, and everyone has their chance at the prize.
And it gets the community going. So if you're not already a part of it as well, the RaceRoom Discord is a good place to be, getting involved in the chats there. And of course, all the races that happen. But then when we get to these, more official ranked races, this is where you can get involved in. As Zach says, get yourself in any of the splits, and you can have some fun, like these guys are having, even in the sort of mid-pack of this race. They're trying to work their way through, trying to get up some positions, but it's so difficult to do so when you're trying to be right on the limit. As Vitva is coming towards Schwedenkreuz once again. He's made a move around the outside of Arenberg last lap. This time he can't find a way through on Michel, but what a strong race he's having.
And I hope his front bumper is just as strong, because I can see it a little bit crinkled in there for Luciano Vitva. It might just be his livery, but it did look a little bit squashed. So maybe his fight with Christian Michel getting a little bit argy-bargy at times, and well, definitely looking argy-bargy is that fight in the background between Guides, Orban, Louis Gamero and Cravey. We follow this fight here. Sebastian Ray on home soil trying to find his way past the Czech driver of Petter Daniel, who's been fortunate enough to have 2 home rounds. We went to the Autodrom Most and 3 weeks ago at Brno, but it's Petter Daniel in 6th as it stands. Sebastian Ray in 7th, trailing behind by a quarter of a second. But considering the difficulties of this circuit, Cam, people have been able to stay close, follow well, which definitely shows a high standard of driving, knowing the drivers have got the trust in each other to follow this closely.
Absolutely, the racecraft and the racing has been really good so far in the opening lap and a bit of this first race of the night. Remember, we still have 2 more races to go, top 10 reversed of each of those. So at the moment, it's Guides in that reverse grip pole. Let's see if he can hold on to that. Oh, bit of contact in the background there. As I said, Cravey just going slightly wide. He's going to have a Havner coming back past him for that 13th, 14th place. They still go side by side, but all the way around the outside, Havner's going to go. And they continue as Cravey comes back through this little kink, this little chicane. That's all, never a place to go side by side, but they're going to do it. More contact is made, and Havner goes into the fence.
Yeah, and he's pirouetted round. Fair enough, he's facing the right way. I don't think that MX-5 is up to standard of driving though, and yeah, he returns his way to pit lane and ends his first race. If he continues on for the evening, he's going to be very much on the back foot. We've got good old Mr. Git in 15th place, trying to chase after Eric Neath for 14th. However, he has got Jacek Kowalewski just in behind in 16th. So all of these drivers trying to battle their way forward. But I suppose that a circuit is unpredictable at the as the Nürburgring, Cam. You can't really give up, because you never know who, what, when is going to make a mistake. Because, of course, you could be in 12th, 13th, losing a little bit of hope of the top 10, and then the blink of an eye, boom, you could find yourself into that position. So it's all about pressing on and making the most of every opportunity you get.
It's a track that bites as well. If you make one small mistake, you are going around. And we saw that with Cravey there. Unfortunately, in the end, it wasn't him who really lost out with that contact. Unfortunately, Havner going for a DNF, unfortunately, as a result of that. But yeah, it definitely chooses its winners, as we like to say sometimes. It's not an easy track to win at, but as it stands, Drace holding on to that while being bum drafted by Mikovits. And now this is Christian Michel still holding on to his podium place, but Vitva is getting closer.
He is, he's reeling him in. To be fair, he's been close for the last 14 and a half minutes, really, or 13 and a half minutes, really, if I can do maths. But yeah, he's been all over the back of Christian Michel. Of course, with Philip Drace winning, Luciano Vitva needs to be within the top 4 of drivers in the overall championship. So right now he's bang on target if he continues this run of form. I mean, again, Luciano Vitva has had such an impressive season. We've had 9 races up until this point. He spent 8 of them inside the top 5, as Guides has had an incident as we run away out of the carousel, into the carousel, and well, the man from Portugal, he's found himself, maybe having an incident with Christian Orban, or just making his own mistake.
And losing the important reverse grid pole, which is so crucial for the drivers a little bit further down in the championship, because it's free money basically. Because surely if you go into pole position, you can at least stay in the top 5, top 6 if you have a deep, solid race, and you can really get some extra points. So unfortunately, dropping out of that is giving Christian Orban potentially another front row start here at the Nordschleife, and that is certainly how it goes. All Cravey and Neve, there's some yellow flags for them. Oh, further huge contact, more contact with the cars coming through. 3-4 cars involved there. Bjorn has got involved, maybe Gerhardt as well. There's definitely been a huge crash. I think that's just coming down from her act, and one of the faster parts of the track.
Yeah, you really have got to have a lot of bravery at this portion of the circuit, and unfortunately the courage ran out for these guys. Courage or talent, one of the two definitely did run out in the end, and unfortunately has seen them end their race once and put them very firmly on the back foot for the remaining race 2 and 3, because if you're outside of the top 10, your finishing position is then your starting position. So for Cravey, a driver that's really impressed over the course of this season so far, has got a lot of work to work his way forward. But yeah, an unfortunate mistake, an unfortunate incident nonetheless. And well, when you're a driver behind, especially when you're going that speed in cars that, you don't really have the capability to react as quickly as you potentially would like them to, it's so difficult to avoid a crash in a situation like that.
Yeah, when you just see some smoke and stuff, and you're just coming around a corner, it's very, very difficult indeed to try and avoid that. But certainly, well, actually, what we see in the front, I think there's been a mistake there for Mikovic, because Drace has got a huge gap coming up to what is effectively the final proper corner of the race of Gelgenkopf onto the back straight, and I think he's even out of slipstream range as well. Mikovic, I think he's far too far behind to get this.
I think so. So, of course, the worry here for Philip Drace was that Mikovic was going to be close enough on the second run through the Dottingerhoe to then just slipstream past him and get the lead back. But I think Drace has put the hard work in over the course of the last 20 kilometres or so, or well, close to maybe 17 kilometres or so of the lap so far, to now give him a gap that could be good enough to keep Mikovic at bay. A gap that isn't good enough is this one here. Christian Mikel is probably going to be a very, very stationary duck in the fight with Luciano Wittfurt, who is just going to find his way flying past. In all fairness, he's giving it a long, long time before finally pulling out to the left-hand side. Will run away under the bridge very shortly. In all fairness to Drace, I mean, Mikovic is closing the gap. It's now only half a second, but giving the squeeze is Christian Michel. We run away downhill in towards Tiergarten for the final time. Luciano Wittfurt over the curb, chucking the move to the inside. Michel putting up a really, really good fight as we come into the final couple of corners for race number 1. Is it going to be Philip Drace? Is it going to be Mate Mikovic? It's going to go the way of the German, the man second place in the championship. He's putting his best foot forward here today at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Round number 4, race 1 of the RaceRoom ranked MX-5 Cup goes the way of the German here on home soil. He'll be joined by Mate Mikovic, and is it going to be Christian Michel? Is it going to be Luciano Wittfurt? The run to the line, the German takes it ahead of the championship leader, with the Frenchman Enzo Philippau rounding off the top 5. A brilliant opening to the evening, Cameron. Well, let's bring on race 2.
Christian Orban there getting that P10 for the reverse grid as well, but certainly an exciting race there. It ends up being a 5-second gap back to Christian Michel, which I was a little bit surprised at. I think we might see a bit closer results in the next couple of races, but Michel also been a bit naughty there, a bit aggressive with the contact, putting Wittfurt on that curb as we come under the Bilstein Bridge, and that was certainly a potential for a high-speed accident, but fortunately they managed to continue, and Michel held on. So needracing.com getting 2 cars on the podium, they'll be loving that, and Philip Drace controlling that race really well at the front. Let Mikovic lead that first lap, but then of course Drace got the lead when it mattered the most.
Yeah, Drace nailed that race. I mean, again, he had the patience to sort of let Mikovic have his time in the spotlight over the course of lap 1. And then once he got in front, he knew that the task he had at hand, which was to build a gap that meant he couldn't be counterattacked on that second run through the Dottingerhoe. It was close. Mikovic was able to still close the gap, such as the strength of the slipstream and the length of the straight itself. But Drace had enough to hang on and take victory. Which really does open the door for the next couple of races. However, he's going to have a lot harder of a time working his way forward in race number 2, seeing as he's going to be starting 10th.
Yeah, it would definitely be a lot more difficult to win a race, and from the amount of overtaking that we saw, maybe that's not so much possible. But we did see those Orban dropping back those 10 places, so yeah, let's see how that one works. I don't think that is a tactic though, because at the end of the day, you still want to be getting the points. So I don't think Orban fell back on purpose to get the reverse grid pole. But yeah, certainly, yeah, it's not the easiest track to overtake. Let's put it that way. So I don't think we're going to be seeing any heroics. But if anything can happen, it's the Nordschleife, because now we put slightly slower drivers to the front, or having seen actually that top 10. Even those drivers who were starting on front row of Nemchek and Orban, they know what they're doing. So actually, I think it might be quite a competitive second race.
Well, before we get our way into race number 2, myself, Zach Sweeney, Cam Roger, we're going to step aside for just a moment. We've got a word from our sponsor. well, we are just moments away from getting ourselves underway for race number 2 of the RaceRoom Ranked Championship. The MX-5 Cup brings itself to its finale over the course of the last 12 weeks, the last 3 rounds when we spanned our way from the Autodrome Moss to Road America, Brno 3 weeks ago, and now here. We've already seen the carnage, the chaos, and the action that can occur here at the most famous circuit in the world. It's myself, Zach Sweeney, still Cameron Roger alongside me in the commentary booth to talk you through all of the racing action yet to come. And Cam, top 10 reverse grid, plenty of action along the way, and a lot on the line in terms of the championship.
Yeah, very close. Very close in the points. So what we've been talking about mostly so far is Vitfa, of course, having that 14-point advantage over Dries in the overall standings, and then another 11 points back to Christian Michel. But from Michel to Filipao behind, that's only 7 points, and then to Ray another further 8 points, and even some people below. There's only a handful of points between them, so definitely some top 10 places that still need to be sorted out in this championship.
Oh, for sure, yeah, plenty still on offer, which is exactly what we like to see, and I'm really looking forward to indulging, of course, the regional championship per series. You know, you get your prizes. It's you get a real life trophy if you take the championship, which is always a nice touch to have a real life sentiment into the virtual world of things. Plus, you get yourself 5,000 VRP. Second gets 3.5. Third, 2.5, 1,500, 1,000, 750 for 6th and 7th, 8th, 9th, and then 9th and 10th get themselves 500, which is essentially, again, free money. But what I do find quite interesting, Cam, is of course that trophy for winning the championship. I've always loved that sentiment of having something real and tangible for your efforts in the virtual world.
Yeah, I mean, you and me, of course, do karting. Obviously, I haven't done that for a few years, to be fair. But when you go karting in real life with your mates or whatever, or even if you enter a proper championship and you get a proper trophy there at the end of the race, that is like a proper thing.
Like Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But you can just put it up on your mantelpiece, you know, or on a shelf in your room and be like, yeah, I won that. And moving that into sim racing as well is so cool. Everyone's racing all over the world, but that does not matter. RaceRoom will send it out to the Maldives if you're living out on an island out there. They will have you sorted on that one. So, although don't quite. So absolutely, that's a cool thing to have, to see the to see all of the drivers having a trophy up for grabs. It certainly just adds that extra little incentive.
Yeah, if you are from the Maldives and you do not get a trophy, blame Cam Roger. He has just put himself on the line there. I do love his quick little backtrack of, I'm so confident, RaceRoom, top geezers. Don't quote me on it though, it's fine. Pure, just trying to cover himself back off again. It's Cam Roger, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, we are just moments away from getting ourselves back underway here at the Nordschleife for race number 2. And, well, what a race it should be. Again, top 10 reverse grid. If you are only just joining us, it was an absolute barnstormer of a race 1. Seeing Philip Dries take the win, which means he'll now be starting from 10th place. Christian Orban, though, back towards the front. It didn't go too well from the first time round. He'll be looking for some redemption.
Yeah, he certainly will. Of course, been on the front row once again, so he's got the opportunity, but he needs to take it this time. He should learn from what he had before. Basically that how not to go backwards, and he needs to start that already in that first corner and not lose another position.
Well, here we are back onto the grid, and we are underway for race number 2. It's a decent start from Christian Orban, but you can see the Marius Samtir also from the second row getting a good launch, and already starting from the pit lane actually. Vili Cravey as well towards the back end of the field after a slow race number 1. Side by side for the leaders, it's Van Titzers trying to fight his way forward as well. Christian Orban and Davin Nemchek fighting for the lead. Bit of contact as well as the Spaniard of Luis Gamera goes round, and is that Christian Orban spinning at the first corner? I think it might well be. Carnage ensues behind as all the cars go left and right and up and down trying to avoid the carnage. Christian Orban already from pole position outside the top 10, not even 3 corners in.
And Christian Michel was involved in that one as well. Guidez dropping down the way. That was a huge crash, taking some big names out of the fight. Yeah, Vitfa, huge names out of this fight. They're going to have to work back to try and get themselves inside that top 10 for the reverse grid of the next race. And that could be potentially championship deciding, or at least for some positions, if not the overall championship. Filipao up into 4th place with Zapdir side by side as he comes through the hairpin up towards this next left-hander. Not really much of a break-in zone, but a very fast left-hander in these MX-5s, as Filipao will now have the inside for the next corner out onto the back straight as we end the GP loop.
Yeah, well, looking at the top 10, you can see Philip Trace is up there. No sign of Luciano Wittfurt, unless I'm just being completely blind. Cannot see the Dutch flag flying anywhere. Where is Luciano Wittfurt? That's a peculiar one, nonetheless. However, into the chicane for the first time to round off the first way through the GP loop. Philip Trace looking very strong, and despite the early carnage, if he can just slowly pick his way forward in this race, and try and replicate the success he had in race 1. I mean, we said it's quite unlikely Wittfurt is going to, finish any lower than 4th overall in today's mini championship. I don't know. I'm a bit skeptical now.
Yeah, he's going to actually struggle just a little bit from that. But then, of course, that assumes that either Michel or Dries will win the overall as well for this round. So definitely very close. We're going side by side up towards a very fast left-hander corner all over the curb. It's going to be from Dries there as Mr. Git holds on to that one as it comes through the rest of Hansberg. All crashes in the background as well. Rostens has gone around and a few other drivers involved, I think.
Yeah, getting word that Luciano Wittfurt's game crashed coming into this race. Gutted. Absolutely gutted, especially if it costs him the championship in the end. That is huge. And such a shame. Again, as reliable as RaceRoom is as a service, it's, small things slip through the cracks sometimes. And I suppose it is the equivalent of maybe your gearbox or engine blowing up in real life, but it doesn't make it any less sad when it happens.
Yeah, it's, I always go with that analogy. It's just like a mechanical failure in real life. It can happen, but it's certainly sad to see. Zabjir now comes up the straight, trying to get this 4th place. Side-by-side also for the lead. I think we've just seen a bit of side-by-side action. And also, even a bit further down, Mr. Git, finally Dries is going to get through. Now, Orban, he loves that 10th position. He's going to try and work his way around as Gamera still holds on for the lead. Nemchek not being able to get through at Arenberg.
Not quite able to make much in terms of a move, but still plenty of opportunities left to come. Look at Sebastian Rey trying to close the gap to the top 2 as well. And that's the problem really at a circuit so momentum based, is that you can very quickly find yourself 2, 3, 4 seconds back just from having one little skirmish, and that can very easily put you out of contention, especially when there's such a high precedent of slipstream. But we run our way through the right and then the left, the uphill braking zone. Very fun corner once you get it right. Not so fun if you get it wrong. Side by side as Enzo Filipao goes to the outside of Sebastian Rey, who's got a really slow exit off and could well lose 3 places in one corner.
Yeah, that is not what he's going to be wanting to do at all. Not had potentially the season that he would have wanted in general. Needs to try and finish it well in the final couple of races, of course, well inside the top 10. Both races so far, as we're still seeing that 3rd place battle, Filipao and Zabdir. But the top 2 have got away by some 2 seconds as we saw more yellow flags. Ontis from P20, he's dropping down the way, the Swedish driver, and unfortunately he's going to be going further down. You see Michel making some moves. That's 14th place. That's 1 position back from the spinner.
Yeah, not too bad for Christian Michel, and little pieces, little baby steps, and well, he's got, what is that, 9/10 up to Polgar, who is in a train actually to Kovalevsky, and then only a little bit up to Mikovic, so it's not a million miles away from Christian Michel. But again, unfortunate that circumstances outside of his control have robbed his chance of a decent race here today. However, I suppose that's motorsport for you. Sometimes you love it, sometimes you hate it. Depends on which side of the coin you are, whether you're the beneficiary or the one that's been put on the back foot for those incidents outside of your control. Philip Trace, our race 1 winner, also slightly involved in that lap 1 carnage, but able to make the most of it and still be in contention. He looks alongside his fellow countryman of Sebastian Rey, gets himself ahead as Petter Daniel moves off and brakes.
Yeah. Is that some sort of slowdown or something for the game? That's certainly an interesting one, but that was not the ideal one for him because he's now lost, what's that, about 3 places. Unfortunately, dropping back in behind Mr. Git there. So he's got your pole driver Orban trying to work his way back up, and Mikovic, of course, your 2nd place driver from the previous race, back up into that 10th place. So huge battles here coming through the Nordschleife once again as they try and work their way through with the slipstream up this back straight.
Yeah, and well, look at that. 4 cars line astern, nose to tail. You can hardly see the one behind the other as to how close they actually are. Pulling alongside is Christian Orban trying to move his way past Petter Daniel. However, the yellow car queued up behind the yellow car is actually going to be able to work together quite nicely. It's Git followed by Daniel. So yellow car supremacy as they close their way onto the back of this train between Philip Trace and Sebastian Rey, which makes it 6 cars now within, what is that, a second and a half?
Yeah, basically, that's 100 meters, probably even less than that, probably about 50 meters covering all of those cars. Awesome, close racing here at the Nordschleife. An amazing track choice, actually, to finish the season. We've had like tracks like Watkins Glen rounding out previous ranks championships, but the Nordschleife is certainly a tricky one, and it's giving us all the action, especially these MX-5s that can stay so close together. Orban almost loses the rear end there, coming out of the carousel, and the train of MX-5s up the hill. That's an awesome shot there from the back.
Yeah, it is. I do fear we might have, if we cast our minds back to the, I think it's the Rookie Ranked Championship of 2022, where Ilya Drovisekov had won all of the races up until Watkins Glen. He had one poor event at the championship finale and it cost him the championship. I think we might have a similar situation here with Luciano Wittwer.
Yeah, it might do, and that's just how the way the points go. It doesn't matter if you win the first 3 races, if you then basically DNF or lose so many points in that final race and you get 0 points, then the drives behind you. There's been a huge crash a little bit lower down. Rafita, Rose, and I can't quite see that. Oh yeah, Blancombe, so he's involved in that one as well. I think Titz was also involved. So many drivers the lower part of the track. We've seen Nemchek up the inside, YouTube corner. He's going to take the lead of the race. Gamero, he held on to it for half a lap, but now into second place.
Yeah, beautifully done as David Nemchek picks his way past. Beautiful move, it must be said, from the driver that's now moved his way up into first place. Louis Gamero is, he's doing all right up there. I mean, he's given him a good fight considering he's not usually a driver to be this high up the order, but he is still within a quarter of a second. They have got to be careful of Enzo Filipao, though, who's reeling them in a little bit. Marius Abdir and Philip Trace, and also Sebastian Ray. I mean, so far we've spoke about that top 2 in isolation. I don't think they're going to be by themselves for much longer.
Yeah, they are. They're certainly not. As we've just seen Cravey, the yellow flags dropping down the way. He has not had the evening that he would have wanted. Mikovic gets past Orban for 9th place. No, he doesn't. Orban comes back on the tower as we've seen Michel now up into that 11th place. The back end of the top 10. That's, of course, reverse grid pole once again for the 3rd race coming up a little bit later. So that is something at least to look out for as Git was there running wide. So much action here with the Nordschleife. So many cars to keep an eye on side by side in towards Gelgakov. All round he goes. Mr. Git unfortunately goes into the barrier there. I think there's a mixture of a bit of contact and a huge bump for the yellow machine.
Yeah, that is unfortunate for Mr. Git. Of course, he live streaming his POV, and I'm sure they're going to have an absolute rave in his chat after that one. Down to 15th place, but moving up in the world is Christian Orban and Matej Mikovic trying to fight over Petr Daniel for 7th place. The fellow countrymen working together quite nicely. We've got David Nemchek and Louis Gamero as well, separated by absolutely nothing. Marius Abdir getting pushed along by Philip Trace as well as we run away through the Dottingham under the bridge as we work our way downhill before sweeping back up through Tiergarten. Christian Orban up to 7th and trying to use Mikovic's bump draft to get him onto the back of Sebastian Ray for 6th.
So close between these battles. We've seen a lot closer battle for the lead as well. 5 cars all within a shout. Nemchek not having the fastest run there in towards Tiergarten as Filipao has a huge send and might be able to get Gamero down in towards the first corner. 1 lap to go of the 2nd race of the evening. Filipao getting just his front bumper alongside, maybe in towards turn number 1. The slipstream and the draft is working really well for Gamero to hold on.
Yeah, but he's also turning defense into offense. Outside line as we run away into GP turn number 1. Outside line as well for Philip Drace on Marius Abdir, who sends the car in deep. Philip Drace trying to get the Supreme up and under, but can't quite. Are we nearly 3 wide into turn number 2? David Nemchek under a bit of pressure from Louis Gamero, who's under pressure from the Frenchman of Enzo Filipao. Running a little bit wide is the Slovakian. Here comes the Spaniard to the inside of 3. He's got it done. Here comes Enzo Filipao as well, using the open gap as an opportunity to find his way into 2nd place. It's the outside for 4, and he's done it. Enzo Filipao in sensational fashion, making the most of Louis Gamero's attack.
Yeah, definitely an aggressive move, bit of contact there in towards turn 3. As we're now getting Zabdir up the inside onto the podium, he is going to go. Nemchek dropping down another place. Now needs to look in his mirrors as Philip Dries, your winner of the previous race, is there sitting behind him 5th.
Yeah, wow, that is huge for David Nemchek. And again, going back to what we were saying about momentum and things, as Enzo Filipao potentially already looking to go for the lead. I mean, we're not even done on the GP loop, and we're on a shortened version of it, and Enzo Filipao is not waiting around on this final lap of race number 2. Marius Sabdir on the back of them as well, inside line potentially for the Frenchman to go into the chicane. He's going to be brave, he's going to be bold, and he's going to be brilliant. Up into the lead goes Enzo Filipao. He's got a long way to hang on to it though.
Oh, he certainly does. Sending it up the inside. Contact being made. Zabdir goes around. Drace gets through to third place. Even more contact. Sebastian Ray, I think that is getting involved there. Absolutely. Seems they turn into each other as well. And that's a huge, terrible rejoin. Oh my God. Zabdir has had the worst 30 seconds of his life.
Marius Sabdir, you are better than that. Oh, wow. That was dreadful. Absolutely not to the standard that we usually see from Marius Sabdir. But after contact, spinning, contact, tapping the driver for good measure again, and then rejoining, yeah, not what he would have wanted at all. He finds himself well outside the top 10, down to 17th place, and all for nothing. A very hasteful send, it must be said, going for the move when it wasn't really on. But what it has allowed is Enzo Filipao to breathe a 1.5 second gap back to Louis Gamero.
Wow, the French driver's had the race of his life in this second round, working his way up slowly through the positions. I'm about to say slowly, it's quite aggressively actually, through the positions, and is now probably going to take a comfortable victory. I don't think Gamero's got the pace to hold on to it, but it just depends. Can Drace get through and make any sort of attack and not let the gap get too much bigger? This is going to be where he's going to have to get through the kink and down in towards the braking zone at Arenberg. That is going to be where he needs to make this move. Nemchek is looking in behind, side by side. It is going to be Fushrin Cross. Can he make the move round the outside? It's going to be in towards the braking zone. That is a huge send if he can do so. Nemchek's going to follow him through. Gamero on the outside, dropping from second place potentially to fourth.
Yeah, indeed so. Outside line as well, as he tries to fight it around the outside, but can't quite manage to do it. Looking backwards on Philip Drace, you've got David Nemchek and fighting away with Louis Gamero. We run our way downhill towards the very quick left-hand uphill rise. A very fun corner again, like a lot of the Nordschleife. Very fun to get right, very not fun when you get it wrong. Perfectly hitting the apex, all three of them, as they fight their way uphill now. The door could open up if you maybe opt for the send, but the curbs are so high here, it's not really worth the risk. You can see there Nemchek just touching it ever so slightly, and you could see it definitely put him ever so slightly on the back foot relative to Drace in front and Gamero behind.
Yeah, certainly the momentum factor is quite a big thing, and once you start losing a little bit, it's difficult to regain that, especially when you're having the battles and people coming around you. So we come back to the lower parts of the top 10. Here's Petr Daniel now down into that 7th place. He's got Christian Michel in behind him, and just up ahead he's got Mikovic and Orban, the two Hungarians who had the front row in qualifying. Huge send down the inside, massively late on the brakes, pushing him door to door, or rubbing, and not even rubbing, really just sending him out of the way as Michel goes up to 7th place.
Stuff there from Christian Michel. Aggressive on the limit, definitely took me by surprise, let's put it that way, and then finds his way into 7th place. Petr Daniel probably didn't really see that one coming either. Just under 3 minutes left to go, probably will be about 5 after we cross the line, because they're only about 4 minutes into their lap time as is. We look up to Matej Mikovic, of course, was running quite well in race 1, doing exactly the same here for race number 2, working with his countrymen, and again, I suppose of all the driving that we've seen, this is probably the most sportsmanlike and the most intelligent, in all fairness. They know how quickly you can lose time, and they can see the battling that's going on between Drace Nemchek and Louis Gamero. They want to be a part of it.
And they certainly know the technique of the bump draft and everything. We saw in the qualifying session, so maybe they can work together to push themselves up, but also to defend from Michel, who once again is having a huge send up the inside, trying to get big in the mirrors, and it's actually worked. He's getting a huge run out onto what's effectively the start of this back straight. It does have quite a few kinks in it, up towards the Mut Curva, but this could potentially be a huge run with the momentum of the MX-5.
Yeah, for sure. Again, such a momentum-based car because it's not got a lot of power. 181 horsepower, not too bad, but compared to, you know, what we're getting to with modern figures and stuff, it's not the most thing in the world. The torque isn't fantastic, which means that you have to keep the minimum speed up, you have to keep those RPMs up in order to maintain that acceleration and that drive off the corner, and that means as soon as you dip below that, the engine bogs and you've got to build it up again, and you start getting frustrated, and then you've got to build yourself back up again, looking to the inside. A couple of looks from both Mikovic and Mikel. Michel, and Christian Orban is sent wide onto the grass. He's able to save it, however, is now put onto the back foot. The two Hungarians go side by side as Mikovic on the outside over the curb as Christian Orban up onto two wheels momentarily. Christian Michel now sees that as an opportunity to fight his way to the inside, and just going to show that one mistake can very quickly turn into an awesome battle, because Christian Orban back up the inside of Michel.
I thought Michel had that one, but he made a bit of a mistake. He went too wide at the apex, side by side in towards the carousel. Surely one's going to be on the top line. No, he backs out to that one as Petr makes a bit of contact. So Orban chose not to do basically the long run on the flat section of the track. You definitely lose a lot of time. Probably the smartest thing to do so. Michel with another aggressive move, ticking them off one by one. He was down in something like 17th place. He's really low down after the contact in the early stages of this race, but is now way back up into 6th place. That is really saving a potential championship charge between him and his teammate Philip Dries, who's actually Dries is kind of looking at getting a second victory of the evening, but I think he's too far back as we, of course, come to the final 20 seconds in the final lap of the race.
Yeah, 2 seconds is a bit of an ask considering the caliber of driver that Enzo Filipao is. One win, 2 podiums, and 4 top 5s, and a pole position for good measure as well. Christian Orban has boasted similar success, however, won't be today, unfortunately, just not quite being to his usual self. I don't know what it is. I mean, he's got the pace. That goes without saying. He's quick, but for whatever reason, he's just not able to race as well as he usually does around the Nordschleife.
Yes, it's certainly it's a tricky one, that is for sure. And if you just get slightly out of the groove, you can start going backwards. And I think that's potentially what we've seen today. And I don't really know how to describe it. But sometimes you just start going on the back foot and you lose that momentum. It's a bit of a downward spiral that you can see. But some drivers are really making the move. I've seen Mr. Git try and make up some places. He's got Polgart ahead of him as we come through Flansgarten, and certainly a very fast part of the track. Can he find any sort of a way through, or is he going to wait for the slipstream down the back straight?
Patience is a difficult compromise in racing like this. You want to wait for the best opportunity, but you also don't know when the next one is going to come. So you have to maybe take them as they do arrive. Polgar trying to put his defensive driving to good use. Mr. Git and Tomeno just in behind as well, trying to put some pressure on to the navy blue MX-5. The up and under potentially from Mr. Git could see him go to the inside, but nothing really happening as we work our way through the smaller carousel of the two into the final, well, not necessarily proper corner, but probably one of the most important corners on the circuit that lead you onto the Dottinger Hoa. Enzo Filipao leads the way, 2.5 seconds clear of the pack, and, well, his racing today, especially in race 2, has been top form.
Yeah, he's coming in strong. He's sitting in 4th place in the championship, so he's actually coming for Christian Michel in the overall standings in the championship. And with the result today, this is looking very good. 1 race to go, though, to find out who's going to be champion, and also 1 braking zone to go. Can Gamero get back past Nemchek? These two were the other way around for such a long time in this race, but Gamero round the outside underneath the Bilstein Bridge, and I think he's done it, but he's got to wait another few hundred meters before the braking zone. But even before that, he gets that 3rd place onto the podium, just 1 corner to go.
Let's go, Louis Gamero. He's up there. Davin Nemchek not going to be too happy, of course, as we will catch Enzo Filipao across the line. He'll be taking his 2nd victory of the season, race number 2 of the finale round of the Mazda MX-5 Cup here for season 1 of the RaceRoom Ranked Championship 2023. It goes the way of the virtual drivers by TX3 machine of Enzo Filipao, Philip Dries, and Jose Louis Gamero will join him on the podium. Davin Nemchek and Christian Michel, the top 5, taking the fast lap as well for good measure. That was the NeedRacing.com driver. But once again, another race and another good one as well.
And it looks like it's going to be Ohak and Kovalevsky on the front row for the final race of the season. 2 drivers who've made up some good positions and got themselves a front row start with the reverse grid feature. And that hopefully should, put them in some, at least, offerings for some top positions. But as we see, this top 10 is completely different to what we saw at the start of the race due to the fact of the huge crash. And it was Filipao who got the lead in the end and really just showed his pace out front.
Yeah, he did. He really just worked so well. And built that gap, making the most of the battling behind, and did not wait around for an opportunity or an invitation to fight. However, you can see that big name of Luciano Wittfurt down in 30th place in this race. Did not get to the end. Unfortunately, his sim crashed and saw him out of contention here for race 2. Will he be back for race 3? You have to argue, Cam. despite the fact he's probably at his lowest low of the championship so far, it's worth it just in case. Points are points at the end of the day, and if it's not the championship win, it could be something else.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, if you don't finish first, you at least want to finish second. You don't want to drop down to 4th, 5th place in the standings just in the final race of the season, so hopefully he can get back in. It's definitely a tricky one, and hopefully is he not able? We've maybe been told he might not be able to rejoin, which could be curtains, but he certainly had a great season, even if that is the case.
Yeah, unfortunately, with RaceRoom ranked and stuff, there needs to be a warm-up practice or a qualifying session for you to join into. You cannot join when it's an active race session, and the way we do it is we go from qualifying to race 1 to race 2 to race 3. There's nothing really in between, which means that if you leave the session, you are out, which is a shame for Luciano Wittfurt, which will definitely see him outside of the top 5 in terms of points scored, and effectively hands the championship going the way of Philip Drace. It is a repeat of what we saw a couple of seasons ago with Ilya Jovisekov, but as you say, it has been a mega season nonetheless for Luciano Wittfurt. And the good thing about these championships is you're not just confined to one. So if he doesn't find success in the MX-5s, he's got the GT3s as well, which, well, we'll see in a couple of weeks' time if he's able to topple that.
Yeah, of course, KTM's next week, GT3s the week after, so still 2 more championships to work out, and you could potentially be winning all 3 if it's difficult to do so with the fact that the races are basically back to back. So you've got to, every single week, you've got to be back up to pace with a new car, with a new track, with a new car on the same track. It's certainly a difficult one to come out on top of. So yeah, hopefully that can at least be challenging in a couple of weeks' time. But for Drace, as you say, Zach, that gives him such a good opportunity. He's already got 11 points on Christian Michel, and he's finished ahead of him in both races so far. So it's looking really good for him for this championship.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, I think, for Christian Michel to win the championship. Again, going back to how the point structure works, essentially what we do is we've had our 4 rounds at Most and Great America, Brno, and here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. What we've done is essentially seen each round in isolation, taking them as their own 3-race championship of sorts, of which for each race, 40 points are awarded for a win, 34 for a second, 30, 27, 24, etc., all the way down to just 1 point for 32nd. But what that does mean is that after the championship order of each mini championship, then the points are awarded. So if you maybe score 120 points for winning all 3 races of an evening, and you win the mini championship, you then get awarded first place for the evening, which will give you 50 points. It's a little bit confusing and quite difficult to wrap your head around, but if you're the top point scorer of the evening, you get the most amount of points, which is 50, 44, 40, 37, all the way down to 34th place, which gets a measly 1 point. So with Luciano Wittfurt, unfortunately, he's not going to be scoring very high in that overall mini championship here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Philip Drace and Christian Michel both are, however, with Philip Drace already having an 11-point advantage over Christian Michel, and also finishing well, could well put him in great stead to win the overall of the evening. And 11 points between first to 11 points would mean that Christian Michel needs to win the overall, with Philip Drace getting 4th place in the Nürburgring Championship, which 2 races in and he scored 2 podiums, I don't think is going to happen, Cal.
Yeah, we will try and, of course, update you with the points after the race as soon as possible. But yeah, certainly it's going to be a little bit difficult for Wittfurt. But as you say, for some of the other drivers, there might be some points going, and we'll definitely see just how it's going to work. But I think obviously, as you say, the way of explaining it being that each round is its own separate sort of little series, so you could just try and win that round to get those extra 50 points, but as ever, these drivers, they're just going to be going for every single race and trying their best with that, because at the end of the day, every single point is going to count, and you're not really going to care where you get the points over the course of the championship or what track it is. You just want to get them on the board.
Yeah, that does help. Winning championships does require to having the most amount of points. Funnily enough, that's how Racing Championship works, and well, the craft of a fantastic racing championship, like what we have got for the RaceRoom Ranked Championship. I have to say, it's a little bit different of a format as opposed to just having set points for each of the races. But I do like it because it motivates you to have a consistent evening and not just try and take one fluke win. However, we've had 2 races, 2 winners here for round 4 of the MX-5 Cup. We're about to get ourselves underway for the final race of the evening. The lights go out and we are underway once again. Petter Daniel, Christian Michel, the front row, as Louis Gamero and Philip Powell get themselves underway as well. The grid order tries to sort itself out. It's a top 10 reverse on the order of race number 2 as they barrel their way in towards turn number 1 for the final time for the first time in towards turn number 1. You can see the white MX-5, however, threading the needle through the middle is Ohak. It's Christian Orban and Kovalevsky once again coming to blows in the opening moments. There's carnage in the background as I think that's Petter Daniel sent sideways.
Yeah, it was Petter Daniel. He went for the spin in the background and shot. He's going to be going all the way to the back of the field, such as a way of crashing when everyone is so close together. Orban has to lead Ohak in second place and Kovalevsky dropping down into that third place. Christian Michel up into 4. Philip Powell, though, your winner from the previous race, he's going down the order. He's had a crash in turn 3.
Not the initial start that he would have wanted at all, and a lot of carnage, a lot of chaos in the opening moments of race number 3. We've got Polgar, has Sebastian Ray on his inside as we cut our way through the sprint Strecker layout and continuing to go side by side. A little bit wide, actually, it must be said, from the Hungarian. Also up towards the front, it's Kovalevsky on the inside of Christian Michel, who fights his way to the inside of the next right-hander, sweeping his way through. You've also got Mate Mikovic as well, waiting for his opportunity to find his way past the pole. As we settle our way towards the end of the GP loop, it's Orban from Ohak, Michel, Kovalevsky and Mikovic, the top 5.
Once again, crashes in the first sector of the GP track. So easy to do. We've had it all races, every race so far. Oh, almost been a contact there with Drace and Mikovic. Some weaving going from the red car of Drace. He's, of course, effectively fighting his teammate now of Michel for the championship. And as it stands, Drace is 3 places back, but he will have the points advantage from the first 2 races. Ontis here in 14th place. Got Bjorn in behind. As these points going to count for these drivers here as well. So watch them going for every position too.
Oh, for sure, yeah. It all counts. This is your final opportunity to gain points in the championship. This is the final race of the MX-5 season. For those still thirsty for more, we have got the KTMs and the GT3s heading for their final round as well over the course of the next couple of weeks. But right now, our focus on these little nippy MX-5s that we've come to know and love over the course of the last few weeks. And, well, it has already dawned onto the final round of the season. It's gone past in a flash, and, well, so too has this evening, and we've enjoyed every single second of that. Christian Orban, however, waiting for his moment in the spotlight. He leads by 1.5 seconds. Finally, a good start for the Hungarian.
Yeah, it hasn't dropped down places. What a surprise. That's worked out really well for him. Of course, 2 drivers on the front row, well, second row is with him. Potentially not quite at the same talent level, maybe helping that, but certainly no mistakes either from him, which is really good. Ohak here is now having to defend. Christian Michel is coming for this race victory. Up the inside is going to be up through Shredding Cross. This is a very fast part of the track, one of the fastest corners in these cars. Wing mirror to wing mirror they go, side by side, but easy pickings for Michel, getting that second place in the end.
Yeah, Michel has been able to work his way forward really effectively. His racecraft has been almost second to none, definitely up there with the likes of Philip Drace and such, but we've now got this fight, Mikovic on the back of Kovalevsky. Philip Drace, the man, the myth, the legend that we've been talking about, who looks good now to potentially inherit the championship lead, therefore the championship win coming into the final race of the season. Through the kink of the left-hander, uphill braking zone once again, could be an overtaken opportunity, a little bit wide from Kovalevsky. Almost invites Mikovic to find a way through. No movement as it stands, but again, they're closing in onto that train potentially for the podium, and that's an opportunity they don't want to miss out on.
Yeah, look at this train. Awesome to see once again the close battles here at the Nordschleife. People don't seem to spread out so much at this track, and that keeps these battles really close together. And the opportunities are, well, it's the opposite of few and far between. They're often and they come in pretty much every corner, but as we've been saying, it's so narrow around this track, so old school. You have to really work for it, and you have to be aggressive, like we saw with Philip Howell, like we saw with Michel in the previous race. You have to really work for it. So certainly looking good. Kovalevsky from the front row of the grid now defending and trying to hold off your pole position driver of Mikovic just in behind him.
Yeah, a very difficult chance of doing that. We've also got the blue MX-5 in the background going wide. Also talking about going wide is Kovalevsky. Mikovic says thank you very much. Same too with Philip Drace trying to pick his way past as well. And the pole, unfortunately, has dropped his way down to 6th place in this race. Sebastian Ray as well looking to the left-hand side of him, not quite able to make much of a move forward, but a crucial mistake. And again, one small error into a very tricky corner on this circuit, it must be said, and boom, 2 places down immediately. You have not got a moment to breathe around the Nordschleife.
You really don't. You have to keep going side by side. It's going to continue up towards the Lauda Kink, and not quite enough room there for Ray to get through. Kovalevsky still holding on. We've got Nemchek, of course, really pushing in behind. Bit of contact between the two. Ray, bit of you could see that just through the cockpit as well. Oversteer, and that is going to lose him some momentum. Coming up this back straight, you can just see the gap ever so slightly increasing as every kilometre an hour matters in these cars. Nemchek, of course, fighting up the front in that previous race. See what he can do with this slipstream.
Yeah, well, there is a lot that you can do. Is it worth waiting for Dottinger-Höhe? But I'm sure he's not really patient enough to wait for that. He's a racing driver after all. If there's an opportunity to be had, there's an opportunity to take. I'm sure that might be a mentality that he adopts. We run away into one of the most courageous corners on the circuit. This quick left-hand flank. David Ohak under a bit of pressure from Mikovic, who tries to pick his way through, but it's the Constantino effect, and immediately Philip Drace is on the attack to the outside of Mikovic. They go door to door, wheel to wheel, rubbing his racing in towards the hairpin before the carousel. It's later on the brakes for Mikovic, but Philip Drace has the momentum. He's got the agility to go the long way around, and it'll eventually turn into the inside line through the carousel, which is exactly the line you need thanks to that inside banking. David Ohak giving the slipstream the way of Philip Drace, who's got the inside and he's got the position ahead of the Hungarian.
Yeah, nice moves there. Really good stuff to see as they're trying to keep this battles going towards the end of this championship. And Drace is looking good. Did a bit of maths. He really needs to just stay inside this top 8, top 7, top 8, and then he will be 100% confirmed. And that is even assuming that Michel wins the race, and he's currently in 2nd place, almost 2 seconds back. So yeah, looking very good so far, but we'll have to see how that one continues. So close, just 3 seconds covering the top 5 and 6 seconds covering the top 9.
Absolutely nothing in it whatsoever. The level of competition that we've had around such a long and difficult circuit definitely shows the caliber of driving, the caliber of talent here at the top echelon of the RaceRoom Ranked Championship. And well, these are names that we've become familiar with through ranked events and championships along the way as well. And yeah, they are usually the names that we see at the top end of every single RaceRoom broadcast. These are the ones that are the best of the best when it comes to RaceRoom. And we've got Kovalevsky on the back of David Nemchek as well. The fight for 6th raging on between the two of them. The Slovakian having a really good run of form today, it must be said, but he's still got over half of the race left to go. Well, we've still got a decent chunk of the Nordschleife left to go, and then a whole other go again. So nothing is absolute at this stage in the race.
Yeah, you got to just keep going and keep putting that pressure on the driver ahead of you. And if you're the driver ahead, you just got to try and hit your apexes. It's so difficult to do so. Your mirrors are being filled. You're getting bumped from behind, and yeah, especially if you're a hack, you've got basically your potential champion in behind you. A lot of pressure. Mikovic is fast driver too, and let's see if he can hold on through the Stefan Belov S's fast part of the track up to a Schraubentron. This is not the place really to overtake. Fast right-hander in towards a very tight left, or maybe a bit more contact between Drace. He's very impatient here to get through.
Yeah, he is not a driver that likes to wait around for sure, especially when there's a championship on the line through the Klein Carousel. He works his way up, a bit of a twitch on the exit as he tries to change gears. He finds his way onto the podium, and he can see the leaders of Christian Orban and Christian Michel as well. So Philip Drace could definitely get himself into contention, but it is going to ride on the assistance of Mikovic. How eager is he going to help? Is he going to be to help Philip Drace close the gap to Christian Orban? And how eager is Christian Michel going to be to find a gap, to find his way past Orban as well? He's doing it very, very early on the Dottinger-Höhe.
I don't think he really had a choice just with how close he was, but that is going to mean they're going to be side by side for so long. Bit of side draft maybe coming in for them. And actually, this might work for Drace. If he's being bum drafted by Mikovic in the background, as Ohak has already dropped off, they are going to be getting close for a 4-way battle coming onto the final lap of the race. And I think it's worked. Mikovic has really closed in here as Michel's taken the lead, but round the outside, is it going to be Philip Drace to the race lead? What a move. Mikovic has worked that masterfully. They go 1-2 from being 3 and 4.
great teamwork between the two of them, and that's exactly what we mean when we come to mutual benefit. They were too wide, too deep for quite a long way, and they've swapped roles. 3 and 4 have now become 1 and 2, and Philip Drees leads from Mate Mikovic, Christian Michel, and Christian Orban. It's German-Hungarian, German-Hungarian, the top 4. One more lap left to go of this season, and it's a long lap indeed. Lot left to be settled. The top 4 battling for the lead all the way through this race. Well, it's about to come to its conclusion. The final round of the RaceRoom Ranked Championship Season 1 of 2023. The MX-5 Cup has battled its way around the globe, and it ends right here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. We've got the GP, we've got the Nordschleife, and then it is the end of the championship. But it's not the end of this battle by any means. Philip Drees has got a very tough job ahead.
That was one of the craziest moves I've ever seen. Michel overtaking for the race lead on Orban, thinking, oh yeah, that's good. Look in the mirrors, the freight train of Drees and Mikovic. Absolutely going to love to see the replay of that one. There's contact actually in the background. I can't go and sorry, it might be Rafita. He's dropped down the way. Loads of drivers are here in the yellow machines coming through turns 3 and 4, trying to find their positions. The Winter, that is in the middle, as they're trying to get their final positions of the season, as it just shows you the battles continue even lower down the field.
Oh yeah, for sure. And the again, it goes back to what we were saying about the community-based thing. Yes, it's the top split, but even at this high level, you still have to be the best of the best of the best in order to compete at this level. And if you are able to get yourself into top split, doesn't mean that you're not going to be without someone to battle. There is always someone around your skill level to have a bit of fun with, to have a rivalry with, and just to go out there and send some moves on each other and battle your way in the championship. Enzo Filipao not having the best of final races. He's fall to 15th, but he makes it 14th now with a fantastic move to the inside of the NGK chicane before we round off the GP loop onto the Nordschleife. And this is the fight we're seeing for the lead. Philip Drees, Mate Mikovic, Christian Michel, and Christian Orban line astern 1, 2, 3, and 4, albeit 2, 3, and 4 a lot closer than 1 and 2.
Yeah, we're starting to see a little bit, maybe a car length, maybe 2 car lengths at the front for Drees, just enough to keep him that little bit more comfortable. But to be honest, it won't be that comfortable at all. He'll be pushing his hardest, and already Mikovic is actually closing in. Huge send there as we end through the Hatzenberg. That is a nice way to get back into the proper slipstream. And as we come out to Flipplats now, this could be a move towards Arenberg. The slipstream just works so nicely with how long the straights are in these cars as well. He's really going to be closing in, just trying to take as much speed as you can through the kink, and he's really closing in.
He is bit by bit waiting for his chance. Of course, Philip Drees, the best way he would want to round off his championship is with the championship win and a race win as well, for good measure, and he's looking very on course in order to be able to do that through the dip and over the rise in towards the left-hand kink before we head away into Arnberg, the heaviest braking zone off the first part of the Nordschleife. Is there going to be any changes in terms of the running order? And there's the send from Christian Michel. He's on the grass and he's straight on at the hairpin and going for the move as well. The show must go on as Mikovic immediately on the attack on Philip Drees. Christian Michel, that was a send and a half.
That was more than a send. Unfortunately, he missed the post box with that one, and it didn't quite fit. So he's going to have to be paying some extra duty for that one. Completely going off the track. He was, of course, braking on the grass as well. That's how he made those moves in that second race. But when you're now fighting the top level drivers, they see it coming and they just squeeze you out and just don't leave you any room. And to be fair, the way that Michel has battled so far, you can't really complain with that one not working. But now let's look at his mirrors. He's got Ray Ohak and Nimchek in behind him for now a 4-way battle for 4th place.
Yeah, nice little battle going on here as the top 3 is still very, very close as well, which is exactly what we like to see. And again, coming back to the very close competition. We're getting one in YouTube chat. That was enthusiastic. That's one way of putting the send from Christian Michel. Let's put it that way. But it has opened the door for a nice little battle between the 4 of them. Michel, Ray, Ohak and Nemchek. It's Germany versus Slovakia for the fight for 4th here on the German home turf. Christian Michel being pushed from Sebastian Ray as he does his best to hang on to 4th place, albeit very shaken up, I'm sure, from that interesting manoeuvre indeed.
somehow still going though, and all that you know, you have to put out of your brain and just get going again with the situation that you're in and fighting for these battles. And I wonder, Zach, which car out of those front three do you want to be? Do you want to be Dries to track position, or do you want to be Orban to try and get a double slipstream and maybe freight train with your friend Mikovic and try and get a 1-2?
Yeah, I mean, their friendship has definitely been proven. I mean, they used each other to get pole, and now they've helped each other quite often, actually, throughout the evening so far. So Hungary definitely proving the power of friendship is a mighty force indeed. Is it going to be enough of a force to tip the immovable object of Philip Drees for the lead of this race? I don't know. I mean, Drees, he led, you know, in race one, going on to the final run through the Dottingham, and he managed to win that. However, that was with a nice sort of 8/10 gap back to Mikovic. I don't know if he's going to be able to have that same luxury here today, especially when Orban is right there with him. I'd say Mikovic, because the thought is that Orban would push him and Mikovic would be the one to take the track position, but you just never know with how crazy of a race this is. We've also got Kovalevsky and Louis Gamero fighting over the 9th and 10th as the Spaniard goes from podium down to the back end of the top 10. Just going to show how crazy the competition is, that you can go from the highest of highs to the back end of the top 10 from the changes of one race to the other.
This is really working our way up to a great finish to the Ranked Championship with the 2 races. For the other 2 series coming your way in the next 2 weeks as well. Can't wait to see what they can do around the Nordschleife, but the MX-5s are working really well at this track. Mikovic getting closer, Orban just being lost there by a car length or so, coming in towards the carousel now. Mikovic really starting to put that pressure on. Dries needs to be looking in his mirrors, but not too much, and to not put him off to try and make a mistake. As we come up the hill towards her act, these top 3 really starting to get close. Half a second covering them. They've got no sort of dramas or anything, pressure coming from behind, so they just need to focus on each other. And Mikovic almost pushing. I think he is the faster driver, just needs to find a way past that's going to lead to him winning this race.
Yeah, well, I'm sure his method of finding a way past is probably just holding station until the Dottingham. You can see that around a circuit as tight, as twisty, as undulating, as unforgiving as Philip Drees, nearly losing it on the rear end as he locks the rear brakes ever so slightly now as we head our way up the hill through YouTube Corner, getting a lovely shot here for the montage. The 3 race leaders nose to tail in the final moments of not only this evening but also of the season as well. We work our way up and down the hill. There's a bit of a tap there from Mikovic as well from Christian Orban. They run their way through the very fast right-hander here as well, and oh my goodness me, this of course is YouTube Corner, not the other one. They're very similar but ever so slightly different. This is the one that's getting the montage. Christian Orban nearly finding a way through on Mikovic, I think, however, choosing not to.
I agree. I think he wanted to sit back there and try and push his way to a victory. NASCAR style is going to be, and I should say the drivers there trying to get on those YouTube highlights. Look out for that one in a couple of weeks' time when the next round hits. Certainly a good compilation clip there as the top 3 continue to be in the same formation, but they are just warming themselves up. They're getting ready. They know what's coming. The 3.7 kilometer run down the back straight, but who's potentially not waiting is Sebastian Ray, getting very close to Christian Michel.
Yeah, he's not waiting around for an opportunity. He doesn't need an invitation to find a way through. They run their way up through the left. I mean, they're not a million miles away from the fight for the lead. Could they do a very similar thing that happened on the previous lap, especially if they work together nicely? I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying it could happen. We've seen how strong that bump draft is. I don't know, I'm not saying that there's like a 1,000,000 to 1 chance, but I am saying it's probably a little bit unlikely. You can see how hard these 3 are pushing each other, and now the all-important run towards Tiergarten.
Oh, I don't think this is going to work. Yes, this is exactly what they wanted. To the outside is going to be Philip Drees. Has absolutely no chance here. Mikovic surely is going to be taking the lead if Orban can push him round the outside.
Yeah, well, of course, for Philip Drees, I mean, just lift off, tuck back into the slipstream. That's probably his best bet. You can also see Christian Michel and Sebastian Ray going side by side. They've got front row seats to this entire battle. It's now Mate Mikovic from Christian Orban 1 and 2. Philip Drees, I mean, I'm sure he's just trying to ride the wave and win the championship with the podium, but he's still in slipstream contention into Tiergarten for the final time of the MX-5 Cup, round number 4, the finale of the Ranked Championship in 2023, season number 1. It's going to go the way potentially of Mikovic or is it going to be Orban? Could it be Dries into Tiergarten for the final time? The final few corners of race 3 of the evening. A little bit deep there, potentially Philip Dries getting the run, but out of the final corner, it's going to be incredibly close to run to the line in that fight for second. But Matej Mikovic for Sengo Esports, the Hungarian, takes the top step after missing out in race 1, becomes the final race winner of the championship. But it's going to be Philip Dries that takes the top spot in the overall championship, getting himself that real-life trophy, 5,000 VRP as well, just for good measure. A fight to the line as well between Polgar and Louis Gamero as we round off the season. Matej Mikovic takes the top step, followed by his countrymen of Christian Orban and Philip Dries, the top 3. Sebastian Ray, Christian Michel, David Nemček, David Ohak and Mariusz Sabzir just in behind for 7th and 8th. Then comes Balázs Polgar, Jose Louis Gamero as well, the top 10. We'll let the rest of the names funnel their way through because we've got a very extensive list. Cam, Roger, what a season we've had.
Yeah, and that final battle, I think, just proved it, what we've seen all season. You've had to be tactical. You've had to make your moves when you need it. And, of course, it worked for Dries. He went from 3rd to 1st, being pushed there by Mikovic. But in the end, it was Mikovic who actually had his friend Orban. They did it to get the front row in qualifying, and they did it again to get a 1-2 in the final race. That bump draft, so powerful in this machine. And just using it at the they timed it so perfectly. Coming out of Gelgenkopf there onto the back straight. They moved out both at the same time and managed to push so far ahead, actually, that Dries, even when he pulled back in, he didn't have any momentum. And fortunately for Dries, Sebastian Ray wasn't doing the same thing to Michel, because Dries might have been freight trained from them in the end. Crazy stuff here at the Nordschleife, entertaining throughout. And yeah, of course, for Dries, in the end, he missed out on the victory for this race, but getting the championship, he's going to be happy with that. But shame for Witwer after missing out on the final 2 races with that disconnection.
Yeah, it is a shame for him. You have to say you are very, very gutted for Luciano Witwer, because he didn't even get the chance to fight for it. And coming in today, he was fairly secure, right? He didn't really have much to worry about. He come into this, have a nice slow evening, but now it's just been stripped away from him. Not to say that Philip Dries doesn't deserve the championship, because he definitely does. I mean, again, we'll talk about luck, and Philip Dries was really lucky to get the championship because Luciano disconnected. Yeah, but why was he lucky? Why was he the lucky one? Because he was the one that throughout the season put the work in to be 2nd place, to be the one that if anything happened, he was the one to then step up. You make your own luck in this industry. Any one of the other 31 drivers could have been the one to get lucky when Luciano Witwer had an issue, but they won. It was Philip Dries. He promoted himself into that championship lead contention. He arrived when it mattered, and he was the one that took the top step. In a few moments' time, we will hopefully have the final championship order for you all to enjoy at home. We'll run you through the final results of this amazing MX-5 Cup. In the meantime, we're going to step away just for a second. We'll throw to a quick ad break, and hopefully when we return, the championship will be ready. Well, we are back and we are eagerly awaiting the final results. Of course, we are fairly sure that Philip Dries was the championship leader. We'll be very embarrassed if we aren't, but we're fairly confident. Again, never trust a commentator's mouth, never trust anything that comes out of a commentator's mouth, but it has been myself, Zach Sweeney, Cam Roger alongside me in the commentary booth. We have had the help of Lewis McGlade along the way, talking you through the season. And Cam, let's just reminisce for a second, because it only feels like yesterday that we were starting off this season. Yes, it's been short and sweet. It's only been over the course of the last few months or so, but it's gone by in a flash. And each of the 12 races that we've had have been sensational.
Absolutely. Starting the season way back at Most was awesome to see, actually. That track really surprised me of how good the racing was, but maybe it wasn't just the track, because the car really worked for all 4 tracks. And of course, we had the Chaos of Brno last time. We had Road America in between. So yeah, I really think that the championship has worked out very well. From that, we had some awesome battles, including Vitfert, Drace, and Michelle, who are really your top 3 of the season. They just showed what you could do in this car and how you could fight, and really the format as well, Zach, I think worked out, because what we saw was the format allowed the drivers to, because if this was one 45-minute race, it might be a little bit boring, but the fact that we had that reset every 15 minutes effectively, we had the reverse grids involved, the championship leaders had to fight for it every race, especially race 2 and 3.
And I love the way that each round, as we compare it to its own mini championship, because it rewarded consistency over anything else. Luciano Vitfert, right, again, he hasn't quite been able to win the championship, but over the course of that whole season, he only won 1 race. But he spent 9 of them inside the top 5, which is incredible consistency and is why he led the way in the championship up until the final round. You don't need to go out there and win every race in order to win the championship. You just need to do enough and be better than those around you. And it's not just winning a race, because if it was one 45-minute race, you know, a driver, yes, of course they would rule consistency and things like that. But to then be consistent over the course of race 1, 2, and 3 in all different types of scenarios and shenanigans along the way really definitely shows who was the better of the drivers in the field, because you had to throw yourself through trial by fire, starting at the front, starting in the mid pack, starting towards the back end of the field, and test yourself in so many different scenarios and still be the consistent one of the bunch. It really showed the quality of drivers that we had, and we had such a mix and match over the course of the season. In the end, we had Enzo Filipao take a win, Jules Oyster take a couple, Sebastian Ray, Maris Abda, Luciano Vitfert, Philip Drace taking a couple, Christian Michel, Matej Mikovic along the way also, all being able to take themselves as race winners. So many names at the top step in a championship as close as this really does boast really, really good stuff.
And here is the final standings, preliminary, of course, but this is the maths that comes to it. And in the end, Vitfert does keep second place, which I'm really, really happy for. But Philip Drace taking the championship from Vitfert, Michelle, Filipao, and Ray, rounding out your top 5. And they are really 5 of the bigger names in RaceRoom at this moment. So I think that is fitting. But Drace, in the end, with that 15-point advantage, takes the top honours.
He does indeed. And, well, again, to be fair, it was a really, really good season for him. Again, it ends on a bit of a sad note for Luciano Vitfert, but again, he'll be back. He's still got second place in the race regardless, in the championship regardless, and he's still got the opportunity in the other championships yet to come. Christian Michel, Enzo Filipao, Sebastian Ray also taking part in those as well. So you'll be seeing some familiar names in the final 2 rounds of the Ranked Championship of 2023. We've got the KTMs in a week's time. They take to the Nordschleife. It'll be Dareth Acker and Ewan O'Leary talking you through all of the action. Then a week after that, Lewis McGlade and myself will be talking your way through the GT3 Championship finale also. However, ladies and gentlemen watching along at home, it's the end of the MX-5 Cup round number 4 of the RaceRoom Ranked Championship. 2023 Season 1. Season 1 definitely has a little bit of an implication. There's maybe going to be a Season 2 in a couple of months' time. We'll share more news when we can get it, but for sure it's going to be one to keep your eye on, because Season 1 boasted a lot. For myself, Zach Sweeney, Cam Roger alongside me in the commentary booth, it's been an absolute pleasure to bring you all of the action, but don't go anywhere. The next couple of weeks still riddled with a lot of fun along the way. Take care, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Do you also feel the same as this car enthusiast? He's reached his vehicle dream, but suddenly the original black wheels seem a bit boring. A colourful detail would add a lot more pep. And a little eye-catcher to match the paint would make the car perfect. Customization options don't only form the wheel to visually match the vehicle, but also provides one-of-a-kind look on the road. The wheel color, rim protectors, center caps, valve caps, and even the wheel bolts can be configured and designed individually using style components of the new BBS Unlimited wheel system. And here's how it works. The BBS Unlimited base wheels are available in a total of 8 different colors, whether it be a glossy, satin, or polished finish, or from a deep indigo blue to racing gold to a rich bronze. Rim protectors are a colorful detail to visually enhance the wheel, while preventing damage from curb contact. In addition, the rim protectors can easily and quickly be replaced and renewed at any time. In total, 6 different designs are available. The center cap completes the wheel. So how cool would it be if it could also be customized? BBS Unlimited Style makes this possible. It's available in 56mm and 70.6mm diameters and can be applied in a variety of ways with the BBS logo. The center cap is available in 2D or 3D embossing, as well as in several color variations. And with the 3D rotation cover, the BBS logo remains visible to everyone, even when the car is in high gear. The valve caps complement the wheel in 6 different colors. This gives the individual wheel an even more coherent look. You can even choose the wheel bolt in the last step to match the wheel. Available in black, silver, and even titanium. With the help of the BBS Unlimited Style components, you're able to create a work of art out of a conventional wheel, according to your own wishes and ideas. Just take a look at our configurator, and after a few clicks, you can already start designing the perfect wheel for your vehicle. Do you have any questions about customization? Then contact the wheel expert now.